Today I'm going to make a card using CSS Grid and this image that I got from Lexica. So I'll first start inside the body tags. I'll add a div, give it a class called container, and this is what's going to contain my card. I'm going to go to CSS and target the container using a doc because that's how we target classes, and then give it a CSS rule, which is made up of a property, border, and then values such as 5 pixels solid and black. So 5 pixels in thickness, solid line, and then black colored line. And then I'm also going to give it a height of 100 VH, which stands for the vertical height of the screen. To remove the border, or I'm sorry, the space around the container, I'm going to target the body, and I'm going to zero out any margin and padding that comes by default with these browsers here. I'm going to also set box sizing to border box because that also helps with that. All right, and then inside HTML, I'm going to do a div, give it a class called card. I'm going to target the card in my CSS, so I'm going to do dot card, give it a border of, let's say, 5 pixels solid red. All right, and I want to give it some height, so I'm going to do a height of, let's say, 500 pixels, width of 300 pixels. Save that, open it up in debug mode so I can see what it looks like. I want it to be in the middle of the screen. And I also wanted to kind of be the opposite. So maybe height 300 with 500. There we go. I want it to be in the middle of the screen. So the red box is inside the black box. So I'm going to go to the black box, which is the container, and give it a display of flex. So then now I can do justify content center, which is a flex property or flex rule, and that's going to move it horizontally to the center, the flex item, which is the red box. And then align item center is going to move the box down towards the center, so vertically, right? So now it's at the center. Then I'm going to go into the card. I'm going to give it two things, an image. Let's do a div id is equal to img for image, leave that as is. And then I'll also do a div, give it a class of content. So the image, I'll go and target it using a hashtag because that's how you target IDs. So I'm going to give it a border of 5 pixels solid blue. And I'll give the content a border of, let's say, green. So I'll change that to green. All right. And I want them to be taking up the full size. So I want them to also be side by side. So what I'll do is I'll go to the card, which is the red box, and I'm going to give that a display of grid. And I'll tell it how many columns I want because a grid is basically how many columns and rows. So I'm going to give it a grid template columns of 1fr, 1fr, basically saying, hey, I want the red box to be separated into two equally spaced columns. But actually, I want to do one. Hold up, let me see. That's weird. Well, I want one row. So grid template, let's say rows 1fr. Oh, I know why it's not working. Hold up, let me delete this. I forgot an N. There we go. So now I'm saying, hey, I want the red box to be separated into two equally spaced columns, which is the blue and the green box. So now they take up equal space in the red box. All right, so then I'm going to go to the image and give it a background. So background URL, and then I'm going to go to Lexica, right click, copy image address, and paste that in there. And then I would want to do background size so that it covers the entirety of its container, which in this case is the blue box. And then maybe do background position. Let's see. Actually, let me see. Is that how the image ends here? There's a little bit more. So yeah, maybe I'll do background position center. There we go. Yep, and so that just kind of moves it to the center. Let's move on to the content. So the content I want in H1, I'm going to leave it as heading for now. Then a p tag, which is going to be a paragraph, so I'm going to do lorem and then tab. And then finally an a tag that leads to nowhere. That's what the hashtag means. Href is basically where the link is going to go to. And I'm going to call it, I don't know, button for now. All right. I'm gonna go to the content and I'm gonna give it a padding of, let's say, 20 pixels. So it looks something like that. And then what I'll do is I'll take the A tag in HTML and give it, let's say, a class of button. And then I'll target the button here. And I'll first remove the underline by removing, well, by saying text decoration setting that's a none. I could also do a background color. And I'll use my color picker. Let's see, what kind of color do I want? Maybe something like this. Paste that in there. And then to actually change the color of the text, I'll do something like white. And then I could also give it a padding of 10 pixels top and bottom, 20 pixels left and right. And then a border radius of, let's say, 20 pixels so that the border is not so edgy, I guess. And then what I'll do is I'll target the contents P tag and I'll set it to have a margin bottom of, let's say, 30 pixels, so there's space between the paragraph and the button. But then that arises a new problem. The red box, well, the green box, well, no, hold up. The blue box and the green box both kind of extend, but then the red box, which is what is containing both of these boxes, is not extending to the same height. So what I'll do is I'll go to the red box, which is the card, and I'll just give it a minimum height of 300 pixels so that it could actually go and increase to the height that the cards are increasing into. And then I'll just give it a height of minimum content just so that's kind of set in concrete. So it's going to be, the height is going to be like the minimum height that the content is. All right, so that's kind of it. And then I'm also going to do, let's say, a hover effect. So button, hover, and I'll change the background. So basically when the button is hovered over, um, what am I doing? Oh, okay. Use, let's say, change it to a darker color, something like that. Paste that in there. So now when I hover over it, it should change to a darker color, which is probably too dark. So it's making it not smooth. So let me get a lighter color than that. Something like this. I think that's literally the same thing. All right, whatever. Okay, so I think I'm gonna make this like a character thing. What's a cool name for a character? Let's call her Violet. Is that too predictable? Um, yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that. And then I want to change the button to say something like purchase. Or oh, maybe I'll do like 2 coins or maybe like 5 coins. Okay, I think that's good. Um, yeah, I'll do that. So Violet and then 5 coins. But I kind of want to do a little bit of JavaScript with this because it is, I'm also including this in my JavaScript log. So instead of doing this, what did I have it as before? Just button. All right, I'll go to JavaScript. Actually, I'm gonna give this an idea of button, and then I'm gonna go to JS and I'm going to create a variable. I'm basically gonna just basically change the button to say 5 coins, but with JavaScript because I'm trying to get this done here. So what am I doing? Variable. I'm gonna call it a button. I'm gonna set it equal to the HTML button by accessing the document, which is the browser's copy of your HTML page, and your browser has to make that copy because JS can't just access the HTML elements because they're elements. And so your browser makes a copy or at least converts those elements into objects and puts those objects into this file called document or the DOM, the document object model. And you can access those objects or that document through the variable document in JavaScript. So then from the document, you can access those elements by saying get element by ID using this function or get element by class name, whatever you want. I give it an ID, so things are easier. And then I'll just say button dot text content, set that equal to 5 coins, right? So I'm targeting the button, targeting its text content, basically what's in here. Whoops, the button, right? The white stuff, and then setting it equal to whatever I want, 5 coins, and that's it. All right. Yep, I think that's it. So then now I'm going to go to the container. Actually, I might want to make it responsive because right now it's not. Like, look at that. So I'll add a media query. Max width, let's say 800 pixels. So when it reaches 800 pixels, I want the card to instead of having two columns, I want it to have one column, so one FR, right? And then that provides another problem because I don't have certain heights here. So I'll do grid template rows 1FR, 1FR. There we go. So now the rows are two equally spaced columns. I would also want to make sure that the black box is extending all the way down as well, which is the container. So I'll give it a minimum height, just like I did with the card, of 100 VH, but then a height of its minimum content. And let me save that. And then I would want there to be some spacing. So what I'll do is I'll give this a margin of 50 pixels. So there's space around the container and it looks a little bit better. And I think that I want it to kind of stay in this height over here. So what I'll do is give the card in the media query like a certain width of like, I don't know. What width is this? 400? That's too much, isn't it? The maximum width that it could be or the minimum width that it could be. There we go. So that would end up being kind of like 200. Or can it just be the width? There we go. So something like 300 would be good. Okay, that works. Um, I don't want this though. So maybe what I'll do is I'll say minimum width also to be 300 pixels. See if that works. Yep, perfect. But then now it's extending outside of the container, which is the black box. And so maybe if I go to the container and give it, let's say, is there such thing as a minimum width to be min content? Oh, yes, apparently. So now the minimum width that the container could be is the minimum of its content. So if the content like reaches this width, the container can't go lower or decrease more of the width than that. Perfect. Okay. So then that works. Now it's responsive. And then last thing I would want to do is give some stuff some color. So background for the body, it's going to be hashtag D3D3 D3, which is kind of like the off grayish color. And then I'll take the card and give that a background of hashtag E6 times. So it's like a white color, or an off-white color. And then I'll remove the borders now, because pretty much done now. So I'll delete these stuff here. And I think we're good. And then maybe the last thing I would want to do is hover over, get a card hover effect. So when I hover over the card, what I want to happen is relative to its previous position, I want it to go from the bottom 2 pixels. So it's gonna go up basically, right? Beautiful. And then I think that's it. Let me open it up in debug mode. And this is what it looks like. And if I do this, it is really nice and responsive, I guess, kind of. Yep, and that's it for today. Bye.